All right, guys, the oldest rivalry in the Deep South coming up this weekend in Auburn at Jordan-Hare Stadium against the Georgia Bulldogs, ranked number 2. And the game this year in the middle of the season as opposed to the end of the season. How do you guys like that? The Dogs ranked number 2. Will that help Auburn this year or hurt?
I'll let Jason Campbell take start.
I tell you what, this time of the year, for me, I'm still trying to get used to Auburn and Georgia in early October. You know, I'm so used to this game being when the weather is kind of cold, it's chilly, all the leaves are off the trees, and, you know, it's getting close to Thanksgiving time. And, you know, it's just, and this game counts so much towards the end of the year as far as who's going to go and represent the West and the East in the SEC championship. And now that this game is moved all the way up to early October, you know, it's kind of like, you know, like, hey, here we go. Like, it's in your face before you know it. And with Georgia being ranked number 2 and Auburn coming off a big win at LSU, it makes the game really more pivotal this week because of that. Because Auburn didn't win that game last week, would this game be as hyped as it would have been as it is right now? And I don't think so. So, you know, everyone wants to see, okay, Bo Nix, he was benched 1 week, played good last week. How's he going to respond this week against a really good defense? And then how is our defense going to respond to Georgia's? You know, their offense doesn't scare me. I think our defense can hold them. And I think their defense is probably the best in the nation right now. Let's just face it. But I think, you know, us having them in our backyard, we typically do really well against high-ranked teams in our backyard.
I agree with Jason Campbell. You know, it can be a good thing and also can be a bad thing. Good thing about playing them later in the season, you kind of can have the time to work out all your kinks. You know, you get your players in there, and you get your system really, you know, formidable and solid and set up in a situation such as playing them later in the season. Because I mean, let's be face it, like this is a new system for a lot of the players, new coaching staff. So they still, I mean, you can see on the defensive side, we still busting coverages, making mental errors. And, you know, as the season go on, you can continue, you can kind of correct those situations. But on the good side is, you know, you're more healthier, you know, in the beginning of the season because you're not as beat up. You know, playing in the SEC schedule, you get one of the things that we always talked about, you know, that you just get beat up. It's the schedule is so grueling. So, you know, you have healthier bodies. And also, too, they're kind of still working on getting their things situated. You know, you don't know what their quarterback situation is going to be. Is he going to come in and how is he going to react when he do come in and play against us? And back on the also, like Jason Campbell said, is their offense don't necessarily scare me, but their defense is one of the top, and I feel is the best in college right now. So they give their offense a lot of opportunities to get the ball by getting those 3 and out and getting turnovers. So our defense, what we have to do is do the same thing. We have to put ourselves in a situation of keeping their offense off the field, getting turnovers, and just giving us as many chances as possible to attack that defense and kind of wear them down. So I feel like this is going to be a defensive game. And whoever showed up, and you know, it's going to be the team that you know I can feel that will move on. Hopefully, Bo Nix continue to play well. That bench I think benching him last week kind of put you know a little fire up on him, and you know he came out, he played really solid in the LSU game, and we'll see if he continue because LSU. Let's face it, LSU defense is not like Georgia defense, so he's about to come against some real tough situations coming up, and I would just want to see how he handled it and move forward.
Mm-hmm. Dontarrious, we were talking a little bit before we came on about recruiting visits with Jason, but I was looking at Perry, Georgia last night, maybe a little closer to Auburn than it is to Athens, but take me back a little bit. And this rivalry has so many implications, recruiting and whatever. Why did you decide to come to Auburn instead of Georgia or wherever else?
Well, the honest truth is I wasn't highly recruited. Georgia didn't recruit me. They came kind of in the picture later on once I committed to Auburn. With my cousin, I have a cousin that played at Georgia, Jermaine Phillips, you know, and him and I grew up. So But once my name got into the system, the portal or whatever, of me committing to Auburn, that's when they kind of came back around. And so for me, I've always had that grudge against Georgia every time when I face them. I still to this day, I still don't really care for Georgia. So, but that's the honest answer why I didn't go to Georgia and why any other colleges think.
Yeah. And you guys both brought up the Georgia offense, and they've got two quarterbacks. Daniels doesn't really seem like he's going to be healthy to me this weekend. Bennett played last weekend. Jason, how does that make it tough to prepare for those two different guys, or do you just kind of prepare for Bennett, or what do you think?
Well, for me, I would just prepare for Bennett. The reason I say that is JT Daniels coming off a lag injury. Anytime you have a lag injury, playing a position, like, that's not a comfortable injury. And the fact that he couldn't throw in pregame last week, that, he's not ready, because that, I'm talking about, that was 4 days ago. And you got a game coming up within 3 days. So if you're talking about taking punishment and getting hit as you're trying to throw a ball. So I don't see JT Daniels being ready for this game. And even at the same time, if he does try to play, I don't think it'll be a long stretch. I just think Bennett is the guy they're going to go with. And I think Bennett has been playing really well. I think, he learned so much from last season, and now having this defense, yes, he hadn't had to play from behind in any game just yet. But at the same time, I think him being more mobile than JT Daniels adds a bigger threat. So if I'm Auburn, I'd rather play JT Daniels than play against JT Daniels than Bennett because of that reason. But I just think you just roll with the guy that's healthy. This is a big game. I just think if they do all of a sudden put JT Daniels in there, I don't think from a scheme-wise things change. So it's not like you have to change everything schematically. I just think from a standpoint, if Bennett is in there, you also got to have a spy linebacker on third downs where he can run for first downs and stuff. So you have to make sure you have someone that's keeping keys on him. So I'm not afraid of their receiving core. It's kind of like Auburn receiving core, where they're still trying to develop. They're still trying to find 3 to 4 key guys that they can, especially trying to find a number one guy. I don't think they have a clear number one guy right now, but I do think their passing game is a little bit ahead of ours. You look at last week, most of our big pass plays came off Bo just trying to make some heroic plays. It wasn't no rhythm plays or no rhythm passes, where the ball is in his hand, is out of his hand, and he's making reads and ball come out is on time. You don't see any of that. And that can bite you when the season gets long, because you can't make a living off just having to scramble around and trying to make plays on your own.
Right. Let's pick up on that a little bit. It seemed to me like last week against LSU, Bo Nix, obviously he's the SEC Offensive Player of the Week, pretty good game, but he seemed like a different player to me. He had that freedom to scramble around where he wasn't doing that in the previous games. Do you think he had a conversation with Bobo or Coach Harsin and said, look, I can't do this. I got to be me. And this is just the way I play? Or what happened before last week's game, do you think?
Well, I think the thing that happened is you look at the Georgia State game and, even the Penn State game, there's a couple of times he probably wanted to scramble around and try to make something happen. But, he's trying to play within the system where they want him to stay in the pocket and want him to try to go through his progressions. But at the end of the day, I think once he got benched, he probably had a conversation with his dad. He probably had a conversation with Coach Harsin to say, look, like, I understand that y'all don't want me to do certain things because you're afraid that we're going to lose yardage or something bad is going to happen. But if you're going to want me to play this quarterback position, then you're just going to have to let me be who I am and trust that I'm going to try to make the best plays as possible and not try to put us in a bad situation. But this is just who I am. I'm a running quarterback. I like to scramble, get outside the pocket. I think a lot of it is he just feel more comfortable outside the pocket. When I watched the Georgia State game, when he was trying to stay in the pocket and make throws, he was missing guys high, and then he was throwing it low. Yeah. And to me, that just tells me like he's pressing and he's not really comfortable just yet sitting in that pocket. And his most biggest attribute for him is to get outside the pocket. And when he's a quarterback like that, I just feel like from a schematically standpoint that Auburn needs to find a way to design more plays for him to get outside the pocket within the playbook, where it's not, he's got to try to make these heroic type plays that he did last week running around. Like DT said, you can't do that against, Georgia. LSU was leading the SEC and the nation in sacks, but overall defense, they're still not the defense of old, and when you think about what Georgia can do from a defense standpoint, they understand that's his strength. So you better be prepared to know that they're going to have lanes that they're going to cut off from him from scrambling like that. So you're going to have to design plays that get him outside, that you pull a tackle, you pull a guard to block the defensive end coming upfield, and you have these deep over routes that's coming that's in his vision so he can still make those throws until he can get comfortable enough to sit in the pocket and go through progressions.
Yeah. Dontarrious, the other thing that sticks out to me about Georgia State and LSU last week is the defense kept getting better as the game went on and obviously made adjustments for the second half. That impresses me about the Auburn defensive coaching staff with limited players that we have with injuries and what have you. That's got to be a good sign going forward.
Yes, I mean, that's a great sign, but I go back to the Georgia State game. I mean, if you look at the first half, who was missing? We had a key guy that was out, the linebacker, Pompo, and the other one, I forget his name. Right?
McClain.
Kobe, yeah.
McClain. Yes, so they was out. And then when they came back second half, Georgia State could not do anything. So that shows the importance of having key leaders in that defensive huddle and making those play calls and being the guy who at the forefront. So we know right now, based on that game, who's the leader of the defense. And it's definitely in that linebacker core. And then they carried that momentum not only from the second half of Georgia State, but carried on to LSU, where they kept putting pressure, kept getting giving the offense a chance to get on the field. And that's what they're going to have to do this week. That's why I say it's going to come down to which defense is going to want it, because Georgia has an offense that, it's not too complicated, but it allows you to get plays. And if we can get the pressure and put pressure on their quarterbacks, especially if it's JT Daniels, get a good solid lick on him, rattle him a little bit, force him into Eric throws, we can find ourselves getting picks and turnovers and putting our offense in good field position, and therefore allow us to score more. Mm-hmm. But it comes down to our linebacker play. I mean, Georgia has great linebackers. That shows to be the leader of their defense, and Auburn's going to have the same. I mean, I think we're going to also have to have more out of our D line. Our D line is going to have to get back in the backfield and keep that pressure on the quarterback to make him scramble. I know we talked about Bennett is more of a scrambling guy, but and to Jason's point, when you have a guy, you take a guy out of coverage and have to spy him, but we got to know that we got to stay in our lanes. Don't just rush to be rushing and not being to have a mind and set of okay, we got to contain him where he likes to. What do he like to scramble to when he get in a pressure situation? Is he a guy that likes to roll out to the right? Do he like to escape to the left? And that's things that coaches should tell the players, and players should come on the field knowing like, okay, if I rush this way, I'm expecting him to roll this way, so we can kind of keep him contained. So we don't have to have that spy guy to drop off in coverage, and we can keep him back there where he can sit back and add to the defensive coverage scheme.
Yeah, and we had a couple of guys that were out last week for the LSU game up front. Wooden and Hall, I thought, played outstanding, and the new guy, Iko Leota from Northwestern, I thought he played a great ball game, and probably is going to have a bigger influence as we go through this season.
Mm-hmm.
Last week,
guys were big, and it's going to be big this week, and hopefully, like you said, they continue to progress and move forward. But go ahead, Jay.
Mm-hmm. No, I was just saying, last week we're missing Walker and Moultrie, and this week, I'm hearing we're supposed to get Walker back, but we're still unsure with Moultrie because of compliance issues. So, I guess we can't depend too much on that, because that can take weeks. So, definitely getting Walker back helps a lot. And I'll just say from a defensive standpoint, it seemed like we make really good adjustments at halftime. Derek Mason does a really good job of adjusting at halftime. And the guys always say, like, he doesn't change the scheme. He just have them where they just do things better. And I think when you can make guys think less and play harder, that's always keys to success. But my X factor in this game is going to be Smoke Monday. The reason I say that, Smoke is a guy, he likes to get his hands on the balls. He can make plays, but sometimes he gets lost in coverage, as DT was saying. And, if he can get to the point where his coverage skills can be like his coming up and hitting skills, then he could be really, really good back there for us. And, and really make some problems happen. And what we can't do though is do what we did last week. Is we had a blitz. We blitzed both linebackers, and LSU's backed up on their 10-yard line, and they hit a slant to Butte for like 60 yards. You know, you got to understand, if you're going to blitz like that, then the corner can't be so far off. A corner has to know, like, okay, this ball is probably going to come out quick if we're blitzing more than they can block. So let me move up and challenge the guy a little bit more instead of giving him free range, just from Curry did last week to Butte. Like, you can't do those type of things. And like DT was saying, create a short field for our offense this week. And I think this is where Carson can help us, because there may be 5 field goals he have to kick more than 40 yards this week. And we're going to need every last one of them. You know, that's just the way it is. Like, you got to know going into the game, like, okay, this is a great red zone defense. Like, you know, they are what their records say they are. They are what their numbers say they are. So you have to respect that and understand, like, if you make it to the red zone and you right outside of you 35, 40-yard line, you may have to just say, hey, this is worth sending Carson out there and getting 3, because this just may be that type of game. So, you know, we'll see what happens come Saturday.
Yeah. And talking about key players, the guy I think about, you mentioned Smoke. I think about Demetrius Robertson this week, a Georgia guy that transferred. It's a big game for him. You think he can come up big for Auburn this weekend? Will they try to target him, Jason?
I say this, like, we got to stop playing so many different receivers. You know, I've said that, you know, the last 2 weeks, we got to find 3 to 4 guys that you can depend on and that you can rely on, because that way you create a rhythm with your quarterback. You know, we're heading to week 5 and week 6. So you need to be honing in on who's your guys. And I think Demetrius need to be in a rotation, because he's a guy that has exceptional speed. He's a guy that we can use him on some deep overs, and we can get him over top of the defense. And him and Javarius Johnson, both of those guys are fast. And when you have an aggressive defense like Georgia, you're going to get some shots early in the game, because they're going to be amped up, and you got to be ready to hit them though. Like, you can't put them out there and you miss them, because they're going to go back and correct whatever they need to correct, and you won't get that opportunity again, because they're that sound on defense. So, you know, Demetrius can be big for us, especially against a defense like this, where you hit him on some crossing routes and you're just trying to get him within the offense. And I think Hudson has got to come up big this week when you talk about it. So I think Demetrius can help us definitely in punt return, changing flipping field position. And you got to know that he's hungry. He's like DT, you know, he's a guy that he actually played at Georgia and then transferred to Cal. Yeah. You know, and I would play the Cal when Georgia names at Auburn. So, you know, you got to know that he's chopping at the bits to get his hands on some balls this weekend in punt return. Yeah.
And that's what I was going to follow up with you, DT. You talked about Georgia and they didn't recruit you, and you went to Auburn. How big was the Georgia-Auburn game looking back, and how did you prepare yourself? Did you try to bring yourself down emotionally or get yourself up, or what was your strategy going in?
For me, the Georgia game was just as big as the Alabama game, Alabama-Auburn. At my first year playing, the Georgia game was even more like, it was, to me, it was above the Alabama game. Like, I had so much hatred towards that coaching staff at that time. So I do remember like having to calm myself down, but getting up for that game, that's not a problem. It's just that you just can't let your emotion get in, cloud your judgment and cloud your and what you do on the field. So I'm sure the guys like Dimitri, he's gonna be ready, he's gonna be fired up, he's gonna be amped up. But he still got to play the ball game. You know, you got to play within the system, do what you're supposed to be doing, and don't try to like overcompensate. Don't try to do things that out of norm. You know, so I'm not worried about those guys not being amped up and not ready for the game. They're gonna be ready for that, but they just got to know like, hey, we got to stick with it, stay with it, and don't let the emotion take over your sound decision and your athletic ability, and let the plays come to you.
Right. Well, it's going to be a big weekend. Probably the biggest, loudest crowd at Auburn since the Alabama game in 2019. I guess that should have an effect on the game Saturday night, and hopefully it can make an effect on the Georgia offense when they try to line up, Jason.
Yeah, that's making a huge effect. That's the one thing. If you go back to 2017, when Auburn was able to knock off Georgia, highly ranked, and knocked off Alabama, highly ranked a couple of weeks after that, was our crowd noise was incredible. And we have to know that going into this game. Like, we can put that same type of crowd noise, let our defense feed off of it, make it harder for Georgia to communicate. like they're going to stumble on offense. And I think our defense can have an opportunity, like DT said, get their hands on some plays and flip field position. So this is a critical game. And like I said, we missed all of 2020 of having hostile environments at home. So, you know, I'm pretty sure that, like I said, we played Akron, Alabama State, and Georgia State at home. Like, let's just be honest, those games were all like homecoming games. Like, ain't nobody really amped up for those. Like, those are games you bring the kids that you don't normally bring to the game. You're gonna bring them to this game. But when you come to the Georgia game, it's a hot ticket. Like, it's hard to get that ticket. And then there's so much excitement in the fans, like they're amped up. It's almost like the whiteout game in Penn State, where they weren't able to have it in 2020. When they played against us, just see it on TV, how electric it was. So Auburn needs to bring that same type of approach this week against Georgia. It's just so different is when we played them in 2017, because the time had changed. At halftime, it's dark, so it makes it even louder. Except for this time, it doesn't get dark till after the game. So it's a different type feel from playing them this early in the season rather than when the time changed.
Yeah. All right. Well, it should be a good one this weekend. I appreciate you guys being with us, War Eagle, and hopefully bring home another big Auburn win Saturday night.
Yeah, War Eagle, get you some 04 stuff behind you back there.
Send me some. I got older stuff than that. I got Cadillac up there.
Yes, I see Lack up there. Yeah. I think that was an Arkansas
game.
I
see him. Yeah, okay.